Hi friends, hello, happy Thursday. Welcome to Craft Your Joy Live. I'm Lisa Hetrick. I'm super excited to be here today. It has been a week, friends. Very, very busy week. On Tuesday, I had my brand new stamp set release with Gina K called Life is the Song. We're going to be using that today. We're going to have some fun. We're going to have some fun today. Yeah, things are kind of heavy, friends, but not here today in this hour. We're setting this intention together. We're going to be together. We're going to create together. We're going to reset our nervous system for joy. Okay, that's what we're going to do. That's exactly what we're going to do. Hey, friends, I see so many people popping in. I'm so excited. Hi, Lynn, Judith, Marcy, with her, she's waving her hands. Hello, Patty. So excited. Can't wait for the kit to come in the mail. Anna's doing some chores. She powered through her chores. I have so many chores to do, Anna, today. I totally hear you. Tressa, Susanna, and Marcy again. Hello, hello. Okay, these have to come off. I don't know what's going on with my eyes, but sometimes I can see and sometimes I can't. So it's just bizarre. Okay, friends, last week we started the month and I shared, we did a paint and chat last week with violas. So if you missed that tutorial, that was a juicy one. And I started off the month talking about watercolor techniques with InkTense products from Derwent, because you all asked me to. You all were interested in learning about your InkTense pencils. And so I decided this entire month of March, I'm going to focus on that particular medium and bring it into our tutorials. So, ready for some joy? Mary, my laundry's not done. It's running right now. I would love, friends, anyone in our chat, in our group today, who has really good mindset switches for laundry. I would love those tips. Because I feel like as long as I've been doing laundry, as long as I've been alive and doing laundry, it is the bane of my existence. And I don't know what it is about it, but I would love some mindset resets on laundry. Okay, Susanna, yes. Okay, Life is the Song that released Tuesday did sell out. And I know that Gina reordered. So if you go to the Gina K website and you get on that, join that wait list, that helps her decide, it helps her get good numbers of people who are interested so that she can order well, if that makes sense. So if you are interested, put your name on that wait list. And if when it comes in, it doesn't really work out for you at that time, totally understand. But that does help her get some good numbers when she reorders. So, okay. Oh, hello. Anna said, oh, everybody's just really popping in and chatty today. So I'm super excited. Oh, Anna just shared, I couldn't get InkTense out of my mind, and I did my latest card with them. It didn't turn out the way I thought, but it turned out. Hey, a lot of things don't turn out the way we think, right? But the whole point of Craft Your Joy isn't always about the outcome, right? It's about the process. It's about getting in and learning some techniques and really, like I want to say, rewiring your nervous system for joy. So, friends, you're sharing some laundry tips, and I'm going to definitely go back and do that. I am definitely going to do that. Go back and look at what everybody says. Probably share them along the way because we could all use a good laundry tip. Friends, I have looked on the internet. That's how desperate I am for good laundry tips. Susanna signed in on that immediately. Okay, great. All right, today we are going to do a mashup with the Life is a Song. We're going to do some stencil techniques because, friends, one of the cool things about designing stencils to go with stamps now for Gina K and my collection and some of my collection moving forward is that I am stencil challenged. I am stencil challenged. I am brush challenged when it comes to using stencils. So one of the things I wanted to do in 2025 was push myself. Instead of avoiding the stencils, embrace the stencils and see how I could integrate them into my paper crafting projects and also watercolor projects. So, uh, like looking at everybody's laundry tips. I'm so excited. Hello, Paya from Sweden. Hello. Hello. Okay, so today we are going to be doing stencil techniques and we're going to be mashing that up with some watercolor techniques with InkTense so that I can continue on with that conversation about that particular medium in your stash that you haven't used, right? So let's dive in. Let's go ahead to the overhead camera. And oh, Marcy, you just shared about the grip mat for stenciling. I'm going to talk about the Gina K grip mat because I didn't have a grip mat. I didn't have a grip mat at all, and I'm going to talk about that today. And everybody's saying they were excited to see a stencil with my set. So moving forward, if it works with the stamp set design that I'm doing for Gina, and mostly I'm trying, moving forward to creating more options like that with stencils that coordinate with stamp sets. Normally I do two-step stamping, and I'll continue to do that, but I'm trying to integrate some other options to go in. Stamps and dies. So let the nerding begin. Yes. And we're going to nerd out today. We're going to totally nerd out. Okay, last week we talked about some fun facts about the Derwent product line, and we're going to continue to do that today. And I'm going to end up talking a little bit about the pan. We're going to use the pan sets today and some of the blocks. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that for the watercolor part that we're going to do. Here's the inspiration for the card that we're going to do today. I love this card. I think I said on Tuesday's live that this was my favorite. There were two that were my favorite. There were several that were my favorite. But this one, there's something about this one that I really, really love. We're going to reproduce this card today, but we're going to do a mashup with some stencil techniques for our floral spray and some watercolor techniques for our piano keys and flowers. So we're going to do a little bit of both. And the end result is going to be quite a bit of contrast in mediums on the card. At least that's the way I think it's going to be in my brain. So we'll see how that comes out. This card was part of the inspiration because this card was done with InkTense. So I'm going to mash these two up together. That was quite the sound effect, wasn't it? I'm going to mash these two concepts together and recreate this card. At least that's what I'm saying in my brain right now. So let's do it. I also just realized that I might need something. Yes, I need some masking. Here, let's pop out. I'm going to need some masking tape. Just some wild thing that popped in my brain. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to use this navy as my card base. So let's go ahead and set that aside for right now. I've got some things pre-stamped. But first, before we begin our stenciling and our stamping, let's just bring InkTense in and have our quick little lesson about this medium. Let me just move a few things. I've got quite a bit going on here. Okay, now InkTense, last week I shared the InkTense pencils and I brought them back in and we did our whole tutorial using the InkTense pencils. So you can see that tutorial. It's just the one we did last week. So it's the one right before this. You'll be able to see it there. And this week I'm going to be using the InkTense Paint Pan Studio set. This is a set of 24. So basically what Derwent did is they took the same formulation of what they use in their pencils and their blocks, and they made it a pan set. Just another option. Like a lot of companies do things like that. They'll take their formulation, they'll use that same color formulation in their color pencils and in their other mediums, and then I have to blow my nose, friends. I'm sorry. Marcy said I have the pencils. Yeah, I have all three. I have the pencil, but I've had these for a really, really long time. And I really do like this pan set for some of the things that we're going to be doing today. And then next week, we're going to talk a little bit about the blocks, but I am going to be using, I think I'm going to be using, I might be using the white in this. So really quick, just to kind of go through some of the fun facts again about InkTense. I've already talked about this. Thank you, Tressa. They have blocks, pans, and pencils, and the whole entire color matching system matches. How come I don't have any issues until I go live? My throat just got a little itchy. Excuse me. Preparing for our summer, no, for our spring. I have winter allergies, not so much spring. So crazy. Get that like dry throat. Okay, our InkTense is permanent when dry and it's light fast. And we did a couple tests last week about trying to reanimate and reactivate InkTense color that was already dried. And in some cases you could, but in most cases, no. The great thing about InkTense is that it's a medium that can be used on other surfaces like wood, fabric, and fiber. There are a lot of silk scarf artists that use InkTense on their silk scarves to create beautiful art. And the ink, this medium has ink-like qualities. So when you're painting with it, it's less transparent. As you can see, it's pretty opaque. It's got a really intense, vibrant, high concentration ink quality look to it. Super, super vibrant. Like if I bring in this card, it's very vibrant. Now, can I achieve these techniques with your watercolors, with the watercolor set? Of course I can. Absolutely, of course I can. But the whole point of sharing this medium is just to share it with you because everyone had kind of asked when I took a poll in one of the lives that there was interest in learning more about these mediums and what they do, right? So, okay, question. Craft and Designs by Nima. Hello, Nima. I can buy one set only from the pencils, block, or pan. Which one do you recommend? Okay, so here's the answer to that question. It's such a great question. Thank you for asking that question. You don't need all three, right? I just happen to have all three because I'm crazy, okay? And I get curious about mediums, and over time, I have had all three and I've used them for different things. You don't need all three. They have the same color formulation across all three types. Here's how I would say making that decision. Here's how I would approach making that decision. Do you, one, feel more comfortable and feel more in control using a pencil? Because sometimes when you're approaching watercolor pencils and water-based pencils like this feel more comfortable, you feel more in control because using a pencil and pen is very natural to us. So if that is something that you feel, grab the pencils because you can do all of these techniques with the pencil. You totally can. Now, and pencils, are really transportable and on the go. You can super duper on the go. Now, if you like watercolor pan sets, and that's your thing, you really like watercolor pan sets, grab the studio set. They only make them in a set of 24. So just know that in the pan set, if you want all the colors, which you don't need, by the way, because there's 72 colors, they don't have all 72 in the pan set. But if the pan set is something that you like, it is very transportable, and you're used to working with pans, grab the pan set. The blocks, I would recommend, here's what I would recommend if you're interested in trying the blocks. Get the white, okay? Because the white is great for splatter. Look, you can see I've got some splatter on here. It's great for splatter techniques. It's great to add to your pencils to make a more pastel look. and then it'll give you a feel for it. You can easily use the blocks and just dip your paint. I don't recommend out of the gate getting the blocks because I feel like the blocks are for more bigger, more advanced techniques, or if you like to paint canvases or something really large where you're using a large surface area, then the blocks are great. But I would say if you're just getting started, these two. And I would say the pencils will give you, you could do some of the same techniques with the pencils. So that was the long boat around the question, Nima, but I really wanted to kind of just break that question down into the three mediums so that you can make a decision, into the three options, so that you can make a decision that worked for you. So I hope that helped. I hope that helped. Okay. All right, we're going to move on to the card. Now, friends, all the supplies are listed down below in the description here on YouTube. And for the most part, I think I got everything. And I don't necessarily focus on like, we're going to cut this, we're going to cut that. We are going to make a lot of things happen with this card today. But we are going to focus on the techniques that we're going to do. Okay, so one more thing about InkTense. So here's the pan set. So smoothie wash with that pan set. The pencil, you can see that you can see some of that pencil texture there. And you are able to activate that pencil texture to get a smoothie effect. I just didn't so that you could see the pencil. The block, same, very, very similar to the pan set. And then mixing InkTense with white. And I think I mixed this pan color with white to get this pastel. We're going to do that today. Okay. Woohoo! We have totally nerded out. Now, let's get started. We're going to start with the watercolor parts first. Now, I pre-stamped, meanwhile, I don't know what I did with my blue. There we go. I pre-stamped my, my base. This is the piano. I pre-stamped the piano in Obsidian. Obsidian is the amalgam ink from Gina K that will allow you to work with water-based mediums, and that black will not bleed. So we're going to start with a little bit of watercoloring. We're going to do some wet into wet, washy watercoloring on our keys, like over the whole thing, okay? And then we're going to dry it so that you can see how InkTense doesn't really fade back as much. Now, if you're doing this technique when you get your stamp set and you don't have InkTense, you don't need it to do this technique. You can do this wet into wet technique with your Gina K inks or any other watercolor in your stash. Okay? But we're just going to do InkTense today. Okay, great. Nima said, you shared, I mostly use Daniel Smith tubes, so order the pan set. That makes sense. That totally makes sense. If you are used to using tube paints and that's something you're comfortable with, then you'll probably really enjoy the pan set. And then the pan set, I think I did link it down below. The pan set comes two ways. You can find it two ways now. This elongated version of 24 and also like a half version where it fits the 24 more in like a rectangular box, like pan set. But they're exactly the same. They're exactly the same. Okay, I need to move some things because, you know, the lefty in me needs to move the things over to the left. Friends, I cleaned up some glue. I got so many things on my desk here. All right, now, what I want to do is, in my sample, I stenciled in some ocean mist, no, sea glass, to get this really beautiful pale blue in my keys. And you could use the stencil to do your inking. I'm going to use our stencil today to do that floral spray, which is so delicate. Oh, Carolyn said there are 100 pencils now. Yeah, they came out with more to an addition to their pencils with a portrait set, I believe. So a lot of like skin tone colors or colors that you could use to build up skin tone. I haven't yet added on to my set because I don't do a lot of portraiture work. So I guess I just haven't done it yet. And I probably won't if I don't do any, if I don't do that kind of work. And I haven't really taken some time to think about it. But thank you, Carolyn, for reminding me, because now I got to go look because I'm curious. Okay, brush is wet, paper is dry. So first what we're going to do is I'm going to take this turquoise color. It's not in the frame. Let me move it in. I'm going to take this turquoise color because I really want to do blue keys, but I want it to be subtle but vibrant. Not as subtle as I did with the ink. This isn't subtle at all, right? This turquoise is not subtle at all. Now with the InkTense, you can add more water and you can, this is about I would say this is a little bit between 2% and whole milk consistency. Okay, so I've got that turquoise, and now I'm going to go in, I might need to, no, I think that this pan set's just too big. You know what's happening, friends? So for the most of the month of February and most of the month of January, I couldn't hear out of my left ear because of sinus drainage. My ear just popped again, which was kind of funny. That was very strange. All right, I've got quite a bit of the Derwent InkTense white. I'm going to add it to this turquoise, and I'm really going to continue to add this to really kind of pastel this color down. That's not even a technical term, pastel this color down, but that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to lighten that value of that turquoise and pastel it down. I just made up a word. Okay, let's do a little test here. By pasteling it down, I want that value to be kind of strong, but then I want to be able to get a lighter value of it by adding water. So I think I need to add a little bit more white to pastel it down, which is not a real term. So, you know, if you go out on the internet looking for it, you won't find it. There's the turquoise color, and this is my pasteled down version. All right, let's do it. So I've got my paint. Now what I'm going to do is some wet into wet. So I'm literally just going to go over the entire set of keys, and I'm wetting this whole piece of watercolor paper. Now, friends, I'm using Strathmore Ready Cut watercolor. I'm looking for it so I can show it to you. That's the color, that's the paper that I use for all the paper crafting watercolor projects because it's 100% cotton. Gail just asked, I have the Derwent InkTense pencils. Can I do this similar? Yes, you can. You can absolutely do this similarly. So as last week when I shared how to use your pencils, Gail, you would take your pencil like this onto a piece of paper, right? And then you can activate it, and then you can use it as a paint. This way, you can add your white to it. You can literally use your piece of paper as your palette and paint with it. So that's why the pencils, if you're just getting started, pencils are great. You can also take the tip like this, and you're getting that paint right onto your pencil. Let's just not paint onto your pencil, paint onto your brush, and then shampoo. There you go. Okay, so yes, that's what I'm saying. I'm just sharing what's available to you and how to use them, but basically you're going to use them all the same way. All right, we're going to drop some of this color in, and see how I'm just dancing my brush across this paper, and I let it dry a little bit. When it dries, it's going to be, it's kind of vibrant right now, but I really do want to control some of that vibrancy. See how some of that color is there? I'm going to add a little, I'm just going to drop, so it drop a little bit in. Gail, she's excited. Yeah, watch last week's tutorial, Gail, on violas. You can actually, if you have your InkTense pencils, you can paint along and print out the line art of the violas and paint along. Look at this! I love this. Okay, now, if I would have just gone in and added some of that turquoise, and I can. Watch, I can go in and add some of this deeper turquoise. It kind of whooshes and does its thing, but it whooshes and does its thing. Got a little bit of hair there, but it also stays in place. Now, I don't want that whooshing like that, so I'm going to dance my brush. I like the whooshing, but I don't like that concentration of that dotted look of color. So I'm just going to dance my brush around a little bit. See how brush is wet, paper's wet. I'm just dancing my brush around and moving the pigment that is here around, moving it around. What did you say to stamp with, please? Oh, yes, 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 yes. Okay, friends, I'm using Gina K Designs Amalgam ink. I'm using Obsidian. Amalgam ink is water, fade resistant and waterproof. So you can see that none of the black is moving as I add water. So you can do all of your really fun watercolor techniques or any kind of water-based technique with that amalgam ink. Okay, now, hey Kelly. Okay, now I'm going to add a little bit more of that InkTense over here on this side. And all I'm doing is just layering in some more color. And then we're going to let this dry. And we're going to move on to the stencil part. And then we'll come back. And I'm going to show you, I'm going to share that with InkTense. Now, with our watercolor, I've talked about this many times, with your watercolor brands, when the color dries, it shifts back, which it becomes lighter in value, which allows us opportunity to glaze and add more on top. InkTense doesn't shift back as much. We have really pasteled this color, right? By adding the white to the turquoise. So we really have changed that color and made it a lot lighter. So when this dries, it's going to dry very similarly to what you see right now. So let's go ahead and set this aside. And take a peek at the questions. Catherine, I thought the first wash was lovely, but every layer adds more interest. Exactly, like every layer, and I'm adding white into white, wet into wet. But when we dry, we can add another layer over top, and that's called glazing. You can call it layering, and that technique in itself jacks up the luminosity of your work. It totally jacks up the luminosity and makes things more and more vibrant the more layers you add. Technically, I'm more of a 3-layer kind of girl when I'm doing that technique, and it really does depend on the medium I'm working with. And some paints are different than others, so we won't go too off topic, because, right, friends, I have a tendency to nerd out and talk about all the different brands. So let's go ahead and set this aside. I got so much going on here. Let's find a spot to put this. Let's put this up here. All right, and now I'm going to set my InkTense aside for a minute, and I'm going to bring in the stencil and working with the stencil. A couple videos ago, we worked with stencils and watercolor. Today, we're going to work with stencils and ink. And I brought out the Misty, friends. She is not clean. She is very dirty. But there's this fun little tool, and someone already mentioned it in the chat. These sticky mats. So this is the new Gina K sticky mat. I know that there are other manufacturers, other brands of sticky mats. I didn't have a sticky mat. So I was like super excited. Sticky mats get hair on them, friends. I was super excited when Gina came out with hers because I didn't have one. And actually, what I've used in the past is my sticky mat, which I was over there looking on my desk to see if I could find it. But I must have put it away. I use a gel plate sometimes. So if you have an old gel plate, I had that old 5x7 gel plate, and I used to use that. I've used that many times as the sticky mat, which is kind of fun. And the reason why I like the sticky mat is because it holds the stencil down, which if you don't have it, you don't need it. You can easily hold your stencil down with some tape or things like that. But this, because I'm so stencil challenged and make such a huge mess with the stencil, this has just kind of been a game changer for me. So super, super fun. Kelly just shared, I was just telling my mom, she's visiting. Hello, Kelly's mom, about your knowledge. Oh, Kelly, you're so sweet. Kelly is an amazing artist friend of mine. We've had so many chats. We've done so many fun videos together. She also, you need to check her out, Kelly Chassie Fine Art. She is an amazing watercolor artist also. She hasn't done in a while, but alcohol ink, her alcohol ink work is amazing. But she has some beautiful, beautiful work. A lot of coastal Maine. Just stunning. I can't paint like her. I can't. She's amazing. Her landscape work, all of it. It's just amazing. So, hi, Kelly. Hello, friends. I'm glad your mother's visiting, too. Okay. I stamped the spray from Life is the Song. This is the spray. I stamped the spray in Slate. And here's why. The keys were stamped in black. I want this to be in Slate. So Slate is a gray, of course, but it also is kind of a lighter version of black, to be honest. So I want that contrast. I want that difference in those colors. I could have done it in a little bit of a lighter color, but I really do like when you're using black ink on your cards. It's very grounding. And it helps make the color pop even more. Oh, Kelly, you're so sweet. Okay. Now, this is the spray this is the stencil for the spray. As you can see, this stencil has some super duper delicate areas, but it fits right over the stamp. Now, I mentioned on the live that I need to move this down a little bit. I often like to, hello, hi Kelly's mom. I'm going to move this down just a little bit. And I love how that sticks. That's just so cool. So cool. There was a time also, I have a Silhouette die cutting, electronic die cutter. And there was a time when I took one of the Silhouette mats and cut it in half. Cut it down and used it as a sticky mat for a while. So kind of fun. All right, I'm going to lay this stencil over top. And then what I like about this is that it just, like if I push down, it kind of just holds that stencil in place, which is really good for someone like me who's stencil challenged. Yes, Marcy, check her out. Kelly, if you're still here, which you're pretty sure you are, drop your website address in the chat so everybody can go check you out. She has a beautiful Etsy store. She also teaches online just like I do. And we've been friends probably, I think since 2019. We met from teaching classes on Skillshare, which we both still do. So, okay. Now, I'm going to go in and I'm going to add grass green to the leafery pieces. Now, I'm not really good at the masking. I'm not really good at keeping the color out of areas that it shouldn't be. So what I'm going to do is just put a little piece of tape over that part right there so that I can just focus on this part. And then I'm going to add a little piece of tape over top of that little flower. I'm going to try to. And mask it off. Because I know me, very heavy-handed. I'm not one of the best blenders in the world, so my blending is going to look a lot more organic and maybe splotchy, which that's all right. I'm stencil challenged. I'm learning, right? We're all learning. Okay, I have Gina K. I love these. I've had these blender brushes for a long time. So but I really like these little ones. And the little ones are going to be really great for this technique. So I'm just, for my leafery, I'm just going to do this go around in circle method. Okay. And then I'm not going to do anything else. I did it once and we're going to let it be. Then I'm going to pull this off and kind of move this way just to kind of cover that part. You could use post-it notes too. I tell you, if you are really interested in really advanced blending techniques, watch Gina, okay? Watch Gina and watch Mindy Egan. The stuff that she does with these and her color is just out of this world. Gina has many, many videos on this. I would say that I am a novice, and that's okay because I'm getting the job done very simply. One of my goals with creating these stencils that go with my stamp line was to create a really wide open, easy way for you to color the inside of your stamped images without a lot of stress. Without a lot of stress. Okay. Oops. Now, if I lift this up, which I can, and we can take a peek at what we have so far, I really kind of digging it. Now, look at that detail inside that little tiny bit of the leafery. And friends, I said this on Tuesday night. Oh, Julie, I'll come right back to that. I said this on Tuesday night that this part of the leafery on the stencil, I had originally left off of my design because I didn't think it would work. Like, I didn't think we could make the stencil manufacturer. But Brian, Gina K's, the graphic designer for Gina K, who takes a look at all of our work and makes sure it's really in line and prepared for manufacturing, he pushed it. He pushed the envelope and emailed me and said, we can do this. And I popped this in. I was just like, what? He's brilliant. Brilliant. Now, you know that I design products for Scrapbook and Cards Today, and I do a lot of stencils there too. And I'm pushing the envelope all the time with stuff that I'm doing there, but for some reason, I did not feel confident that I could make that happen. All right, now we're going to go ahead and move on to the flower, and I'm just positioning it, and then I'm just going to go ahead and put this down. Now, Julie just asked, can you either provide a link or the full title of the InkTense pencil that I'm showing? Yes, okay. So the InkTense pencil, let me go back, that I showed is called Dark Aquamarine. That's the turquoise color if you're looking for the pencil. If you're looking for the sets that I talked about, down below in the description, it's actually the very last 3 or 4 things in the supply list. I wrote the words InkTense options, and you can click on any of those InkTense options and you can see all 3 of the different InkTense options, and then you can kind of pick and choose from there what you might want to get. I hope that helped. Let me know. If not, I'll try to find the link to the Dark Aquamarine pencil if that's what you were looking for. Okay, now we're going to move on to a very, very pale blue for a flower, because we're going to do like little blue flowers, like I'm going to pretend like these flowers are like morning glories. On Tuesday, when we launched the stamp set, I talked about my flowers in my collection being graphic in nature. And sometimes they look like what you think they're going to look like a peony or a camellia or, flowers, all the different names of flowers. But sometimes I create flowers that are just graphic in nature, and by the nature of the color that you assign to them or that you color them in with, they become what you want them to be. Okay? All right, we're going to do sea glass, and then we're going to come back in and add a little black dot for the center. Now, I'm not going to mask off this green around it, because if some sea glass touches the green, all the merry it will be, right? I'm not worrying about it. I think it'll be pretty. So I'm just inking up, and I'm probably inking up way too much. Now, I am heavy-handed, so I know I have a tendency to go in and just start smooshing around, and then I end up with a line or a very unpleasant looking smoosh of color. So I'm trying to be light-handed with this and just kind of focus on woohoosh, woohoosh, swirling this color around a little bit and just kind of going around the edges with this sea glass. And I want to keep it, I want to keep that center kind of wide open, or wide open color. Some of that green, because I did not clean my stencil in between, is going to show up a little bit in that color, but that's okay. I like those little, the way the sea glass is blended with the grass green. We get a little bit of color blending together, your ink blending. Now I'm going to wipe off my stencil. There are some tips. Again, I'm not an expert in my stencils, but I'm learning, and that was one of my goals this year. You know, we have goals. Everybody has goals, right? I had a goal to not be so afraid of stencils, using them, and be patient, which isn't one of my things that I'm good at sometimes with supplies. Okay. Now I've got a little dot here. I'm going to come in with this dot, just put it here. You could easily take your marker and color that in. And I'm looking, and I am going to have to use this one. We'll use this for my black and just kind of go in. And I'm going to thump that in. I learned that thumping, which is that tap, tap, tapping. I learned that from Gina. And thumping makes more sense to me because I am a little bit more aggressive with things. So I got that black in there. Loving that. Now, one technique that I did learn from like Mindy and a couple other, like Kathy Zilski, a couple other people that are friends of mine that I've watched, is if you really want to clean your stencil off, I just did with some water, but people use like a spritz with a little bit of rubbing alcohol, and they clean their stencils, and it comes right off, and then it doesn't get all over your hands and all the things. Now, I have that little tiny, tiny flower right there. And I think I'm going to come in and use the stencil with the flower and do it in some sweet corn and just kind of thump in some color there. Now, let me go ahead. I just realized, oh, there she is. There's the yellow. Let's go ahead and grab the stencil. So you see how I'm a lot slower with stencils? But that's okay. I know that this is going to work in my head. What I thought was going to work in my head is going to work for showing a little bit of a difference between stencil coloring and watercolor. Okay, I'm going to use a little bit of the sweet corn. And I know I'm getting too much on here. And I'm just going to thump it in. And I didn't mask off that yellow. I didn't mask off the green in that area, because I'm letting those two colors blend. I'm letting some of that sweet corn go into that grass green because I think it adds some beautiful highlight of color into it. Also, I don't want to spend all day masking, right? I could mask off every single one of these little things and do something different, and that would be beautiful, but we're not going to do that. We're not going to do that. We're going to call this done, and I love it. I love the way it looks. Okay, not so sure about that blue yet, but I think we're going to be fine. We're going to pull this off, and then I think I kept, what would I do with the little piece of plastic? Let me just put that little piece of plastic back on there real quick and move this out of the way. Because we're going to run this through the die cutter eventually and cut that whole piece out with the die. But first, before we do that, let's come back to our InkTense piece. She's still kind of wet, but take a peek at the color. Really still super vibrant. Really liking the way that looks. Another thing about InkTense is that you can see some of that granulation there. You can see some of that pigment is still suspended in the water, and it's got those little dots of granulation. Love it. It is separated. All right, we're going to be die cutting that out, but let's go ahead and move on to the single flowers. And I think what I want to do with the flowers. So originally I was going to do the flowers and have them be in the ink, but I also stamped them out so that we could do some of these flowers in watercolor, and then we'll decide in InkTense, and then we'll decide which ones we're going to use on the final card. Excuse me, my goodness. All right, let's bring in our water. And we're going to do, again, wet into wet. So I'm wetting this entire thing. This is kind of fun, where you could just stamp up a bunch of flowers, and with this wet into wet technique, you're just going to drop in your color, and it's going to be, this is my favorite kind of watercoloring. Messy, wet, washy, super fun. Totally digging it. Okay. Loving it, loving it, loving it. And I'm not so worried about what's happening around our edges, because we're going to die cut these out, or I'm going to hand cut them out, one or the other. I've got the die, but we might die cut them out. I'm adding a little bit more color to the center. We're going to let that dry. And then if it doesn't dry, I'm going to come back and heat dry it. Now, let's go ahead. We're going to let this dry. Let's move this over here onto my face. We'll move that right there. Let's bring it in and do some stenciling. Adding some stencil color to these two. And then we can make some decisions on which ones we're going to use. All right. Okay, let's move some stuff out of the way. Let's plop this down, maybe like right here, and see where we are. So in the stamp set, I did provide that same flower that's in the floral spray as a separate stamp so that you could do it individually. Man, I'm just running out of spice on my desk. Let's go ahead, pop this up. Let's just go ahead and put this down here, lining it up, and then just kind of popping that down, letting that stick. All right, I'm going to do some options here. I've got blue raspberry as a blue. Where is my other blue? And I have the ocean mist. And I don't know how I feel about the ocean mist here. We're probably going to end up covering that up. Let's go in with a little bit of a brighter blue. Let's do some blue raspberry. Blue raspberry. And see how that comes out. Oh, I may have instantly regretted that because I went in pretty heavy. But let's just let it ride. Kind of like it. I kind of didn't have it totally set up. See how it's kind of offset a little bit? And I talked about that on the live Tuesday night. I kind of like the offset look sometimes. I know it's not perfect, but I'm like, everything I do is like less than perfect, which is fun. We're learning. All right, this time I had a little bit more of a heavier hand and I applied a lot more color. I'm not so worried about all that stuff because that's gonna, we're gonna die cut that out. Let's clean off the stencil, kind of set that aside, and let's pop these, let's take this off. And let's take a look at all of our flowers and their colors because we've done them 2 different ways. Marcy, it's loose and artsy. Yeah, it is loose and artsy. I like it. I'm digging it. Okay. This is still kind of wet, so let's go ahead and dry this off. So that we can see. All right. I brought something today so that I would not burn my hands. It's actually a chip clip. I may end up burning the chip clip. Okay. And I'm not so sure that I brought the chip clip in. Chip clip may have just been sitting on my desk from eating popcorn. So it wasn't an intentional thing. Now, we're going to do a little bit of glazing. So I'm loving the intensity of this blue. This blue especially. This one, a little too intense. This one, not enough, right? These two over here, I love how the colors are faded back. We've got a nice contrast between this blue and this blue. Marcy, yeah, get a wooden clothespin. And I know that I have a stash of wooden clothespins around here. I just got to find them. All right, I'm going to go ahead and, as I look for my, where did it go? Oh my goodness. Things are just disappearing left to right on my desk. Or it's just right here in plain sight. And I can't see it. All right, let's just put some color down here. That's just, oh, I put my Misty over top of it so I couldn't see. Go figure. Got a big mess going on here. I'm going to take some of this turquoise, plop it down, because we're going to go in and do a little bit of glazing. You could also do this with the Gina K Blue Raspberry ink, but I'm going to go in with and do a little bit of glazing with the InkTense. Just going to pop some of that in. Very wet into wet. I mean, wet into dry. Paper was dry. Brush was wet. It's very juicy color. I'm dancing my brush around. One of the other things I like about InkTense is that you can do a lot of the same techniques. See how I can lift some of that up and away. Lift some of that up and away. But that color is really vibrant, and I think it's going to be the nice mix of the blues between this one and this one that I'm trying to achieve. Who knows? It may, maybe, may not. Okay. Let's just dry it. Let's just dry it and move on. We got some die cutting to do. Making a lot of pieces. Stenciling is definitely adding, oh, I'm glad you asked that question. Stenciling is definitely adding a little bit of extra onto the project today because I'm getting used to it. So Gail just asked a really great question. What is meant by glazing? Okay. So glazing or layering, whichever you prefer to say, glazing is when you are adding another layer of color over top of a base layer of color in watercolor. So this layer is dry. Let's just make sure it's a little damp. This was our first layer of that turquoise color that we did for the keys. I'm going to make sure it's completely dry. It is now. It's just a little tiny bit wet. And now I'm going to add a layer, another layer of color watercolor artist, the technical term is glazing. And what it does, it starts to jack up the luminosity of the color. It starts to add layers of color on top of another layer so that you get more vibrancy with your color. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and just kind of wet this one area over here. And I'm just dancing my brush around. Do, 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 do. Then we're going to come in and just drop some color in. And it's very wet into wet, and it looks super messy. And I'm going to dance my brush around a little bit. And then I'm going to let it be. See how I've got some color up here from that first layer? We've just added in this second layer. I love it. I hope that answered your question, Gail. It's really super simple. It does sound like something scientific or intense, but it's not. It's just layering colors. Let's go ahead and dry this. We're going to move on. I think we're pretty close to assembly. Maybe. Oh, I just discovered one thing we didn't do. Let's just get this dried. Now, as this is dried, you can see that from our first layers up here and over here, we've got a much lighter, more skim milk-like value of that color, of that aquamarine color, turquoise color. And now over here, we glazed in, layered in another layer. I guess that's why people use glazing, the term glazing. Another layer of that color in that wet into wet. So we've got a little bit more of a darker value of that color. This is probably more closer to a 2% milk look. And I could go in again and add another layer. So brush is wet, paper is dry, and see how I could add a little bit more right here. And it would even add a little bit, it's starting to jack up that luminosity of color. Right now I'm just dancing my brush around those edges, just feathering that out, but I'm going to leave that dark value there. Okay, let's go ahead and dry this. Great! Loving it. Now, before we start our assembly, we've got to put in the keys, the black keys for the piano. Now, the black keys, you can do it two ways. You could stencil in the black keys. See how that would fit in really nicely over top of that stamp? You could watercolor in the black keys, or you could use the watercolor brush stroke stamp of the black keys, which that's what we're going to do, because we're doing a total mashup here. We're mashing up all different kinds of techniques. Now, you could use your MISTI for this, or you can free range it, and I'm going to free range it. Catherine had a great question. When you say luminosity, are you talking about the intensity? Yes. So jacking up the brightness, the luminosity of it. When you are glazing and adding layers, your image or the piece that you're working with becomes more vibrant. I just call it jacking up the luminosity. Again, nerd speak. Total nerd speak for making it brighter. Does that help, Catherine? You know, you get a little bit of nerd speak on my on our show, right? Okay, I'm using blue raspberry. I may regret this. I'm not sure. We'll see. But I built in that look of brushstroke with the stamp. And I'm just going to go ahead and stamp this in over top. Just give it a little rock. And the reason why I'm rocking it a little bit is because I'm using 100% cotton paper. That's thirsty, thirsty paper. So I'm just going to rock it a little bit. All right, I'm kind of digging, I'm liking the blue. I'm liking it. I could leave it the way it is, or I'm just going to take my brush that's just a little damp, and I'm just going to run my brush over it and use that Gina K ink as a watercolor medium. Just jacking it up. All right, let's clean off this stamp. And now we're going to move to like the die cutting and assembly. And let's put it together and see if we achieved that mashed up contrast that I was trying to achieve with the card. I kind of wish I would have done a different blue. I'm already out of the gate saying I kind of wish I would have done a little bit of a different blue for the black keys, or done it in black or gray. But I think my end result is going to feel good. So let's just set this aside and go ahead and start to die cut some of our elements. Paper Hugs by Kim. Thank you for explaining the terminology when it comes to watercolor. I had no idea that glazing was just layering color. Learning so much. Oh, you know what, Kim, she said keep dumbing it down for me. It's not dumbing it down. I think it's just simplifying it. There are, with any kind of art medium, even in our paper crafting projects, there are terms, right, that were made up by someone. And there are lots of different kinds of watercolor terms that over the years, I've just made up different terms that I feel sound simpler or just explain. So I'm glad that that's coming through, the explanation of these things. I just realized that I might not be able to get this through this little die cutter. Gosh, Lise, you're really on it today. I might have to bring out the big gun for that one. All right, let's go ahead and cut some of our flowers. I really like the little baby Intri-Cut because it fits. I've said this many times. It just fits in the, it fits here under the camera. So I really thought I could get that die through, but maybe I can't. So here's the die. No, it'll fit through. I just need to cut some of that paper. All right, let's go ahead and die cut some of these pieces out. Get our card together because we've already run over. We've already run over, friends, today. But that's okay. And I don't want to run into... I know Gina's going live soon too, and I don't want to run into hers because I know a lot of you like to watch her. I love to watch her too. So let's just die cut that one. And I actually think I don't like that one. Let's go ahead and die cut this one because I really think I'm going to like that one. And we're going to die cut this one. And I think maybe that one. Going to get a little bit of like a 3 blue contrast going here. Let's see. Let's see what we get. Let's see what we get. I didn't pre-make this card ahead of time so that I would know how it was going to turn out. I just kind of had this idea in my head, and I need to grab my scissors. So let me go ahead and grab some scissors real quick. Big ones and little ones. Okay. So I didn't, pre-make this card so that I would automatically know how it was going to turn out. I didn't do that. I don't always do that. Sometimes I do that because I really want to make it, I really want to hit that 30-minute mark. But you know what? The tutorials that I'm sharing with you this year, especially our paper crafting tutorials and our card tutorials, I'm trying to go a little bit deeper, make sure that I do explain some things about watercolor and techniques, like in depth, because you all have asked me for that. So remember, if you ever have to pop out, you can always watch the replay. All right, I'm going to cut the center one, then we're going to move to the spray. The spray! All right, let's cut this one out. Friends, it is a dark and gray rainy day in Maryland, or like it needs to rain, or it's trying to think about raining. I just wish it would rain. Just rain, because we need a little bit of rain. All right, let's go ahead. I've got this big piece of tape. We're done with this. I can save that one for another time. Now for my spray, I'm just gonna like get this smaller so I can fit it through this little die cutter because I don't want to break out the big one. Because I really like this little one. Now, this die is intricate. This die is super intricate. It is really close shave, so to speak, and fits really well around the spray and lining it up. So let's go ahead and line her up. Look at that. I think, there we go. Take a moment just to make sure she's lined up, you know, pretty well. Pretty well. And let's go ahead and die cut her out. Now, you can also use that stamp. You don't, the die is available to you, but you can also use that stamp like this, which is what I really like. I love that versatility. That's a big one. That's a big one. All right, let's pop that out. And let's pop that beautiful spray out. Holy smokes, look at that. So like all the little dots in between, like trying to get a really close shave there. I'm off just a little bit, but I don't care. I'm digging it. Let's move to some assembly of our card project, and let's see if I achieved that goal in the mashup of some really nice contrast between the watercolor versions and the stenciled versions of our color. All right, these keys are bothering me. I don't like the way that they look, but we're going to commit because I think once I put the spray over them, I'm going to be okay with it. And I think, oh, come on, little. I just cleaned this out. Let's just, there we go. Get her activated. My Connect glue. I had to clean some of my glues out. I haven't done a really good job of keeping the spouts clean, and you know, glue dries, glue gets sticky. Let's go ahead and open up the navy. Let's lay this down. Got a lot of blues going on. All right, kind of liking it. Hi, Gloria. Catching on the replay. No problem. Okay, I've got this. I'm going to lay the spray over here. And I think once I lay the spray on, I'm going to feel a little less upset about that blue, because I think that blue is going to really be pulled out by these. So let's just go ahead and lay that down. Glue, glue, glue. Little dots of glue. Look at the back of that die cut. You can see how much detail it cuts out for that spray. Love it. Very, very intricate. Hi, Karen. Oh, Karen is so sweet. Let me lay this down so that I can read her comment. I intentionally designed this stamp and that edge to go perfectly up against the edge of the piano keys, so that it can stick off a little bit. It can also stick off a little bit here, but it has that whole like spray look coming off the keys. All right. Karen said, I had to comment that this set is fantabulous. I can't wait to play with it. Your card is looking beautiful, and I love that you go with the flow. Thank you, Karen. I do go with the flow. It's not always a good flow, but I do go with the flow. Okay, now, I said that I didn't really care for the way that flower came out, so I'm going to pop this one over top of it and hide it. I'm going to use a little bit of glue and just pop that right there. And I think that's going to help me feel a little bit better about the fact that I did those blue keys that way. And I'm going to grab a black pen real quick. I got a little black Copic marker because instead of stenciling in the centers of those flowers, just got glue on me, go figure, I'm going to do a little black pen. All right, I've got this flower and I've got these blue flowers. This flower I thought I was really going to like, and I think I still do. I'm going to pop that one up right here. This is sea glass, and this was our turquoise in the InkTense, and they have a similar value to them. So I'm just going to add that one right here. Could have popped them up with some foam, but I forgot to bring the foam over to the desk. So Marcy has a question. Do you worry about wasting your watercolors? Marcy, this is such a good question. And I'm going to answer it. I'm a bit anal and want to use all of my color and end up ruining my projects trying to use up the color. I'm going to answer that question. Do I worry about using up all of my watercolor? I don't. And here's why. I'm going to add this. I'm going to add this one right here. And while I'm adding it, I'm just going to talk through a few things. I don't know if I like that. I don't think I like that at all. I think I'm going to leave these two, and I'm going to pop. I don't like it down here. I'm going to bring one up here. Don't like that. I'm going to bring one like right here. Down here, there's too much dark happening down here that there's not enough contrast between that flower and this flower. So I'm going to take this flower and just kind of put it right here where we have a little bit of this leaf pointing into this flower, this piece, this flower here, a part of the spray, and this flower kind of nesting in between that leaf. Now, Marcy, I don't worry about wasting watercolors, and here's why. There's so much paint in your tube, in your pan, in your pencil, and I don't feel like you would use up that entire set in a lifetime. On the lower right. Oh, good. That could have worked too, Marcy, like putting it down here. And I don't worry about it. Now, I have replaced colors. Like if I use a lot of pink. So I've replaced pink over time. But I also feel like I don't worry so much because the whole point of doing what we're doing, I'm looking for my black pen, is, again, crafting our joy, like finding that moment, learning these techniques, and having some fun with what we're doing. I don't worry about it because life's too short, right? And it's just paint and paper. It's just paint and paper. So if you're feeling a little bit, feeling like your supplies feel like a little too precious to use, I know this might sound a little bit woo, but I feel like your supplies are screaming out to you to use them and play with them and have some fun and create with them. And that's kind of how I feel about it. So I feel like you're not going to use them up because you're not using them every day of 24/7 of your life. So that's kind of how I feel about it. I'm loving the way this looks. Adding that black to the center really grounds that whole thing. I'm not disliking the blue now, which I thought I would. And I'm kind of digging this. Now, I'm going to go in and add the sentiment. We're going to do that in black. And I'm going to free range it in. We're going to do, let's do Life is the Song, Love is the Music. And I'm just going to kind of add that down here in this lower quadrant right here. Marcy said, I love that. Good. Good. Marcy, I hope that was helpful. Like, I hope that answered and was helpful about, feeling concerned about using your watercolors. I'm going to open up my card here. I'm going to free range this. I could get my Misty. My Misty's right there. And if I was smart, I would grab my Misty. But I'm not going to. I'm just going to go ahead and ink this up. Get some nice Obsidian on here. And then I'm going to free range that color, free range that stamp right there. Good, Marcy. I'm glad it was helpful. I'm rocking it a little bit because I'm on watercolor paper. Lifting up. And that came out great. I know I've said this before. How many, raise your hand if you've done a card and you got all the way to the end and then shampoo. You dropped your stamp on the whole card. You boogered it up or you messed up your sentiment. I've done it so many times. All right, I'm loving this. I'm loving the way it looks. What I want to do now, Marcy said, my stash is screaming at me. I think our stashes are screaming at us. Let's stop being collectors so much as a collector and start using. That's what they're saying. Use me, play, get your stuff out, enjoy. All right, I am looking for my Gina K pokey picker, and I'm gonna add some of the disco ball stuff like right in here to just kind of close up and complement that energy that's happening between these three flowers. So it kind of just brings it together a little bit. We add that couple little sequin elements that just kind of bring them together a little bit. Look at me. I just tried to put that lid on top of the glue. Derp. Karen said me. Ugh, me. Marcy said her hand was waving too. You know what, Karen, when I was preparing samples for our release on Tuesday, it happened to me twice. I was so frustrated with myself. I ruined whole cards. Oh, look at that. I had that upside down. I ruined whole cards simply by putting that sentiment on last and just kind of boogering it up. All right, so adding the little bit of that disco ball there, it just kind of creates a little bit of a flow of energy that's going this way. And then we've got this little triad going this way. So it's like a little windstorm. In my head, it's like a little windstorm. Got a little bit of glue there, but that's going to dry. All right, let's bring in the original inspiration and we'll take a peek. All right, so here's the original inspiration that was all done with the stencil and Gina K inks on the heavyweight cards, on the lightweight white cardstock from Gina K. I love that cardstock. Whenever I do any kind of ink blending, everything just becomes so smoothie. Smoothie. So you kind of get those watercolor effects. Loving the way this looks. Here is our other card where I mashed up the stenciling and getting our color application of color with stencils with the watercolor of InkTense. And same concept, different execution, different look. I'm digging it. I'm loving it. I almost want to throw some splatter down on that, and I might do that after the live since we're running over so much. Karen said that is so sad when you drop the greeting when you're almost done. It is. It is so frustrating and sad, but I'm digging this card. All right, friends. I ran way over. I usually stick within the hour, but we were having fun. We've got a brand new set of products here, and I was introducing the stencil to you all. I will be back next week with a new card tutorial. I would encourage you to jump on my email list. That information is down below in the description because I send out the link for the live and the time and all that ahead of time to my email subscribers. And I also tell you now that what time I'm going to go. It'll be next Thursday with a brand new card tutorial. We'll do a new mashup. And next week, I think I've got an idea in my head for the keys. So we'll see. We'll see what comes out. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining me today. It's not lost on me that you've taken the time to set the intention for us to be together and to just kind of drop into this space to craft your joy. I just love it. I absolutely love it, and I'm so grateful to you. I would encourage you also to take a look down below in the description at my free community. I am so excited about this community. It's craftyourjoylab.com. It's free to you. I am still posting in social media, of course, and I am posting into the Gina K group, but I have pulled away from spending a lot of time in social media because frankly, I wasn't sure if you were all seeing the inspiration. So I created my own platform on the Mighty Networks, my own community, and I'm sharing lots of things over there that I don't share in social media. And it's very exciting. It's very, very exciting. I love it. And it's free to you. So I'd love to see you over there. We have so many new friends, and I just launched this in, I feel like it was December or January. So it's still so new. And I also do a tutorial, a full-on watercolor tutorial that's exclusive to the community. Do it once a month. So, okay, friends, thank you so much for joining me. Thanks for being here with me. I'm sending you into the weekend to craft your joy, and I'll see you next week. Thanks, friends. Have a good weekend. Bye now.